خب بینندگان از تلویزیون فردا، امیدوارم که تا اینجای برنامه از برنامه خوشتان آمده باشد. امشب یک برنامه بسیار ویژه داریم با یکی از نویسنده ها و یکی از کسانی که سالهای سال در رابطه با تاریخ افغانان ساربان در استرالیا تحقیقات دارن، ریسرچ کردن و یک عمری را در این تاریخ گذشتاندن. اگر در جریان باشید، چند هفته قبل یک سکه و یک کوینی که در استرالیا از طرف رویال استرالیان منت به بازار آمد و او را به افتخار افغانان ساربان، عکس یک افغان را چاپ کرده بودند و عکس یک شتر از افغانان را هم او چاپ کردند که افغانان ساربان به تقریبا به نام شتر سواران افغان در استرالیا مسمی هستند و در اینجا سالهای سال میشه که اونجا هستن. خب فیلم ها، کتاب ها و این موضوعات زیاد از او چاپ شده. در این برنامه ما خواستیم که در رابطه با افغانان ساربان بیشتر صحبت بکنیم، در رابطه با این که چی خدمات را در استرالیا کردن، چی وقت آمدن، از کدام کشور بودن و بالاخره تمام مشخصاتی که افغانان ساربان در زمان داشتن یک دفعه دیگه یک ریفرش بکنیم، تازه شوه و در ذهن‌ها پس بیایم. ما خواستم که در این برنامه با خود یکی از کسایی که در این رابطه خب ریسرچ داره، تحقیقات داره، در رابطه با برنامه با ما صحبت بکنن و خوشبختانه تونستم که پاملا راجکوسکی رو پیدا بکنم. پاملا راجکوسکی همونطور که می‌بینین چندان کتاب و چیزا چاپ کرده در رابطه با افغانان ساربان، عکس‌ها و ریسرچ ها اینایی که داره، تقریبا 40 سال 41 سال است که تحقیقات میکنه و ما خواستم که امشب بیای با ما در برنامه یک جا شوه، خب یک مصاحبه بسیار خودمانی داشته باشیم و در رابطه با تاریخ افغانان صحبت بکنیم و این که خب این رویال عدل استرالیان منت یک ارگانیزیشن دولتی است که معمولا پول چاپ میکنه در استرالیا. چرا آمده در سر سکه 50 سنتی عکس افغانا را چاپ کرده؟ برای ما بسیار جالب بود و خواستیم که دو نفری ما بیایم در رابطه با این صحبت بکنیم. همچنانی که میدونید تقریبا یک 10 سال میشه که ما هم در رابطه با افغانان ساربان تحقیقات میکنیم و فکر میکنم برنامه مفید خواهد بود. امیدوارم که از این استفاده بکنید. با ما باشید. Thank you for coming tonight for to this interview. Obviously, I've done a little bit introduction on the Afghan Cameleers. Please go ahead and say something on the history and what you have done so far.
Well, I've researched the history of the Afghan Cameleers in Australia for 40 years. I started in 1980, not knowing where it would take me, and I'm a city girl. I travelled around Australia doing research and meeting the descendants, and over time the descendants and I got together to celebrate their heritage. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we organised events involving lots of people across Australia. Like we had festivals, we had book launches. So there's some pictures here, posters advertising some of the festivals that we did. But what we wanted to do was also set up some memorials to the Cameleers. So there's a photograph here in Maree, and there's a photograph of a memorial that we set up to the Cameleers. But I guess after all this time, I found it quite exciting that a coin was dedicated to the Afghan Cameleers.
That's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, just
yes.
when you hear about the coin and one side of the coin is actually a camel driver and the other side is the queen, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very significant, I think.
Yes.
And very interesting. Let's talk on this, Pamela, on the topic of the
coin.
The coin, yeah. So this is a Royal Australian Mint organization, which is, I think, one of the biggest. Is it the biggest?
Yeah, it's the main mint in Australia that mints our money.
Makes money,
yes,
print money.
Prints our money.
Yeah. And normally when I hear the name Royal, I think this is even bigger than the government, isn't it? So it's just, if it's given the level of the government and higher level.
I think that's heritage too, because our mint was under the reign of the Queen. The Queen is our monarch.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to that heritage, but it's the Australian main government mint.
It's, I mean, as an Afghan, I would would like to thanks on behalf of the all Afghans on what they have done. It's significant, it's historic, and it's a very good timing of it. Everything you can think of, it's perfectly been done, and the way they put the coin together is very nice. But as a researcher or as a documentary filmmaker myself, I would have some concern. Yeah, so it is not concern. We're just talking about how they put it together, and you may have some talk on this as well. What do you think on this coin?
Well, I was very impressed. Like we've been trying to celebrate the history of the Afghan Cameleers at national levels and state levels. The coin is something that will circulate. I don't know if it started being. It was only printed this month, April.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's actually out in circulation yet, but it's a coin that will travel around communities, and people will see the picture of the Afghan Cameleers. Tonight we've talked a lot about their contribution to this country, and that may not be the message that people will immediately connect to. That's why I think our conversation tonight is important to back up the significance of that coin. But I think it's an opportunity for many Australian people to at least click into who were the Afghan Cameleers and to be more inquisitive about their contribution and why it should be so important to put that image on a coin in Australia. And I see its potential as maybe also building up relationships beyond Australia, because people do collect coins internationally, and this may be able to take the story of the Cameleers even beyond Australia.
That's very, very true. And as I said, and as you said rightly too, the last 10 years I'm doing the Farda TV and also Afghan Cameleers documentary. We normally see the people from the estates level, or we had discussion on this on the university academics, but in the high level of national level of government body is doing this sort of job. It's very significant, and I think they need a good appreciation, and we do ours on behalf of ours.
Yes, I'd like to support that, because a lot of the work I've done has been with the descendants. The descendants and I doing things, and I think the coin is wonderful, because to me it's significant. It does represent relationships between Australia and the Afghan Cameleers, because, as I said earlier, the Emir of Afghanistan was very interested in what was happening over here with the Cameleers. And the Cameleers came from Afghanistan and northwest India, so there was that relationship. But with a coin like this, what it does is get Australian people across the country to think about the Cameleers, at least to become curious. But a coin like that can also be taken to collections overseas and build more relationships between Australia maybe and Afghanistan.
Obviously, you just mentioned before that 160.
Yeah, and that was my thought too, because I thought this is the year 2020. I thought, why is this coin coming out in 2020? And then I remembered that the very first Cameleers that came here, and I think the text of the Royal Australian Mint refers to that in 1860, 8 Cameleers came here with 26 camels for the Burke and Wills expedition. Only 4 stayed, but they worked on this country, and this is the year 2020, so that makes it a 160-year anniversary of the very first Cameleers coming to this country, and after that more and more came and built up their contribution and their achievements for this country.
And also, I know that the other stories around this, because of the 50 years of Afghanistan and Australian diplomatic relationship, that's another thing, maybe.
Yeah, and
maybe it goes that way as well, but...
Well, maybe it does, but like if you look at it that's a formal relationship, but if you look at it historically, the relationships had begun to grow already, with the Emir of Afghanistan being interested in what's happening over here. And
100 years ago.
Yes, that's right, in the 1880s, 1890s, so yeah, that's over 100 years ago too, that's right.
That's very, very interesting. I actually went a bit deeper on this, and I was wondering if we can discuss on this just as a researcher, obviously, to find out what is actually the real around what I'm going to ask the question now. In the website, when you go there, they say the Afghan came from British India, Central Asia, and Middle East. Yeah? And the Facebook page, they says that the Afghan... who came from countries including Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Turkey. This was a bit because I never heard of Turkey in this story before.
No.
The part of Pakistan is very true, but then Afghanistan and British India. Pakistan was.
Yeah, Pakistan was part of British India. That was Baluchistan. That part of West India.
Actual Pakistan independent was actually 1947 or 48. What do you think of this?
Well, I prefer the second description that you read, that one about talking about the Middle East, which is so many countries. I earlier said that the origin of the Cameleers was mainly Afghanistan and northwest India. Sometimes the word Turkey comes up. There is a book that lists all the contributors of the Perth Mosque according to tribe and has all their names. Not one of them is from Turkey. Mm-hmm. And I stay away from that claim because I can't prove it. As a researcher, I can't say to somebody 6 of the Afghan Cameleers came from Istanbul.
Yeah.
The only reason they might come to this country is if they happened to get on a ship that was going, I don't know, past India. I do know that one of the Cameleers came from Aden, but that's only one, and that's not Turkey. And I think also I read the other day that it was described that the Afghan Cameleers came from the hills and the plains of land that stretched between Persia and Turkestan.
Turkestan side of
Turkestan, which to me makes more sense because geographically it's closer than Turkey is. So there was one Turk at Broken Hill, I believe. He was called a Turk. But I found out when I was reading further into his life that he actually was a Turk living in Persia. And he somehow got a contract to come to Australia.
So the name Turkey, the country Turkey.
Yeah. See, sometimes when people write synopses like that, they don't do a lot of research. They just write something fairly quickly without giving it the true substance it should have.
And it's very interesting because in the website of the same organization say something and the Facebook says something.
Well, I think they were different authors in sitting in a different office, but not actually going into books like this and checking the facts.
That's true.
Turkey comes up a lot, but I have not seen. I've seen 2 photographs of Afghan Cameleers with fezzes, which are Turkish, I gather, in design, but it doesn't prove that they are from Turkey.
Yeah. The costume can't prove stuff, can they?
It might give an indication, but I've seen those photographs and I can't prove to you that they are from Turkey.
But apart from that sort of arguments, I think it's very beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I understand where the design comes from, and I think that.
Do you think who is this guy?
Well, I think we have here on the front. I think that is. The excerpt talks about, this celebrates the contribution of Afghans to exploration, starting in 1860, which was the first explorers, had Cameleers. I think that's a picture of another famous explorer, an Afghan called Bejar Dervish.
So Bejar Dervish,
yeah, he was employed by the South Australian government to go with camels on an expedition out of Maree in 1896. And he's wearing a white shirt, which suggests to me that he's been in Australia for some time, because the very first Afghans that came here wore tunics and bloomers, as you would know, Fahim. I think I've even seen you dressed like that on formal occasions. So he's been here for a while, so I think that's actually taken from a photograph of Bejar Dervish. And I think that's how the camels did work. The Cameleers worked in camel strings, so that's quite appropriate. And the decorated camel, I think, is quite...
I love this decoration in the camel.
Because a lot of the early Cameleers did bring camels and they decorated them for formal photographs or formal moments. And in the early days, they got a lot of tourists who would come and visit Maree and sit on a camel and have a camel ride. And so the Cameleers would take the time out to decorate their camels up. And I have some photographs to show you how ornately the camels were decorated. But over time, I think when the Cameleers began to work so hard and walk so far, those things were very fragile and just disappeared. They've just frayed away. But at least there are photographs to verify that that's a genuine camel in Australia, and that, I think, is Bejar Dervish.
And that is... I mean, it's so nice picture when you see it. And
putting the string in at the bottom, underneath, across the coin.
Yeah, I can see this one. It shows that Royal Australian Mint put some effort on this and do some designing. And
so
because this is not from one picture, obviously.
It's a combination. I think someone put some thought into what would be the composition of the photograph of the picture before they actually put it on the coin.
great job. And we again thanks them so much.
Mm.
Pamela, thank you very much for coming tonight in the show.
Thank you.
And
My
I think
pleasure.
that was significant and so informative to sit with you all the time and just listen
Yes.
from your stories and obviously 40 years of research. And thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Fahim, for having me.